Hey Defenders, welcome back to the channel. We have some serious breaking news that's occurring right now. It's happened in the last 24 hours and it's happening in our dear sweet politically, mentally handicapped Minnesota. All that Minnesota nice and veneer is definitely peeling back to show the rot at the core of this state and what's being allowed to fly as far as your own taxpayer dollars. So we've already covered and touched on this lightly. In fact, we've alluded and had our own predictions of where money was flowing in this state and going to foreign nations. So we just covered literally on one of our last videos that we had something like $22 billion out of the Minnesota state going to NGOs outside the state. On top of that, we've covered the Feed Our Future scandal, the war orphan scandal out of Rochester, Minnesota, back from 2010, where the Somali community down there was soliciting donations and taking that money and sending it overseas to Al-Shabaab. And then we've even covered the fact that the Somali community, into the tune of billions of dollars, is sending remittances out of Minnesota and the United States to fund 25% of the GDP of the nation of Somalia. There is a huge amount of money bleeding and hemorrhaging out of this state. Now, what is the most recent scandal on top of all this? It just got announced that an investigation has been underway that has uncovered that the Department of Health and Human Services and the federal government and the Joint Counterterrorism Task Force has uncovered that millions of dollars is flowing out of the state of Minnesota in the form of a Medicaid scheme through autism diagnosis to fund Al-Shabaab, the terrorist organization in Somalia. So let's pick this apart. Now, what is happening? The Somali community, and this investigation is now looking all the way back, and we're now in 2018, to the sum of $3 million in claims through Medicaid for diagnoses of autism and to have services and support and grants to help people with autism, which, of course, is interesting because from 2018 to 2023, there's a 132% increase in claims. It jumps from $3 million to $399 million in Medicaid claims, and all of that money being taken by the Somali community being sent overseas to fund Al-Shabaab. And essentially, they were overdiagnosing or claiming fake diagnosis, and it's an entire fraud that is happening right under our noses. And which actually goes to show that under the current administration, this investigation has then occurred. And, I'm not even endorsing one candidate over another, but you look at the administration before and hello, this was happening during that time frame. Absolutely. And actually, it was even happening under Trump the first time, too, back in 2018. So a lot of things are going on in the state of Minnesota, and it is not good because this is all your taxpayer dollars, Minnesota. This is your money that you work hard for. This is dance lessons for your children. This is money for ammunition when you need to go train on the range, right? This is food on your family's tables. And all the while, you have the Waltz administration now pushing another 6.9% increase on property taxes on top of the 7.7% increase on property taxes the year before in this state. And that we as a people, as citizenry of Minnesota, are allowing this to happen to us. So all of this has been confirmed by the Joint Counterterrorism Task Force. In fact, Minnesota State is the largest funder of the terrorist organization known as Al-Shabaab, the United States state of Minnesota. Which, what does that mean? The Minnesota taxpayer is the largest funder for the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Because what's happening is that this money is flowing out of the country, going to Al-Shabaab, and the Federal Counterterrorism Task Force is confirming that millions of dollars in stolen funds from this Medicaid scam is going directly into the hands and coffers of Al-Shabaab. So the investigation really got kicked off by the Minnesota Department of Health and Human Services on August 1st this year. And what happened was that there was an investigation looking at 77 house stabilization programs in the state under being brought to light due to credible allegations of fraud. In fact, the state, under the U.S. Attorney's Office, they discovered that the majority of the house stabilization programs in the state of Minnesota were all fraudulent. How fraudulent? Well, organizations claiming to be part of these housing stabilization programs and then again using Medicaid to help autism, were operating out of addresses, trying to claim these funds to help out of dilapidated storefronts and abandoned buildings. The perpetrators then targeted people that were coming out of rehab or were already getting help from other programs, signing them up for Medicaid when they didn't even have intention of signing up for Medicaid. Kind of like a version of ballot harvesting, but for fraudulent spending out of Medicaid. Now, how many schemes are we talking about here? Because it wasn't just one. All of this does track back to the fraudulent claims for Medicaid, but it was schemes on top of schemes. In fact, like I have to read these out just because of how many there are. We had owners of companies engaged in the HSS fraud had other companies through which they billed other Medicaid programs, such as the EIDBI Autism Program, the Adult Rehabilitative Mental Health Services Program, the Integrated Community Support Program, the Community Access for Disability Inclusion Program, PCA services, and other Medicaid waivered services. And what you're looking at is that it was a never-ending stacking of scheme on top of scheme to get these funds and send them overseas. Now, somebody caught in the crosshairs of this is a Somali American by the name of Ashaf Farhan Hassan, who played a role in a $14 million federal fraud. And it was perpetrated against the Minnesota Early Intensive Development and Behavioral Intervention Program. That's the EIDBI program that I just mentioned earlier, okay? And that's part of a scheme that artificially increased autism Medicaid claims in the state of Minnesota from $3 million in 2018 to $54 million in 2019. That's already a huge increase, okay? $77 million in 2020, $183 million in 2021, $279 million in 2022, at $399 million in 2023. Now, in a recent press release, the U.S. Attorney's Office actually came out and said as such and broke this down. And what she did was to drive up enrollment, Hassan herself and her partners paid monthly kickbacks to parents of children who enrolled in the program. So fraudulently enrolled children. They did not have autism. And not only was this money then going to Al-Shabaab, but the people that were enrolled from the Somali community enrolled into these Medicaid programs, like the EIDBI program, when they didn't get a kickback that they felt was high enough for them, they threatened to go to other autism programs to get a larger kickback. So there only was there a large scheme of money flowing out of the state, but there was a large scheme to just grift off the top and line their own pockets as well at the same time. All of that Minnesota taxpayer-funded dollars. This is further perpetrated by the Somali community then creating their own autism programs and facilities to then perpetrate the fraud even further. This came to a rate of that 1 in every 16 Somalis in the state of Minnesota was diagnosed with autism, which is well above the percentage even for, a country that, has genetic abnormalities as it does out of Minnesota when we start talking about the inbreeding rates in that country. So, that aside, look at what's happening, Minnesota. This is happening right here in your backyard. All these scandals. And so this is another scandal that we can stack on top of all the other ones, breaking the camel's back. And now the administration here, Waltz's administration, wants to tax you further. We just talked about this. All of this. Money for your plate, for clean water in your home, to heat your home, to put fuel in your car, to get ammunition to train at the range, to get gear you need, to fund your hobbies, to go fishing and hunting, to help your children, to help them go to trade school. I say trade school because colleges are just indoctrination centers, okay? But all of this money getting taken out of your pockets, and then the audacity of the state of Minnesota to then come in and say, and counties too. Don't forget that. Counties that then come in and say, hey, we need more money. We need more levies and referendums. And now let's throw up, I'm going to use Rice County, for example, because I just used them last time, where we had levies coming in to fund a new prison that came in. And then we had levies for 2 different school districts in the area that we're in. And what did they do? They increasing our property taxes too. And then you have your city increasing property taxes. And then Waltz is floating, hey, let's have an increase on sales tax also. Oh, also another 6.9% increase on your property taxes at the state level. Minnesotans are bleeding and hemorrhaging the money that they work hard for. And if you're sick of this, as I am, do something about it. Get involved politically. And it's hard. I know that. A lot of you out on the channel, you're probably leaning a little more right. Absolutely. You know, I get it. Okay. And you have jobs, you have families that you need to take care of. But there comes a point in time where you need to plant trees whose shade you will never know. That you need to stop looking at the comforts of right now and be uncomfortable right now to then set up your state, your community, and your family for the future so they can have those comforts. It is about sacrifice. And to put your money where your mouth is. If you don't want to see your hard-earned taxpayer dollars flowing out of your pocket to go fund organizations that not only hate you, hate the West, hate Christianity, hate democracy, hate representational republics, and that want a theocratic rule and want Sharia law, who come out and literally say they refuse to assimilate, where you have representatives like Omar stating that she cares more about Somalians than Americans because she is Somalian, then you need to go vote. You need to go get involved. You need to also run for positions and go be involved. Go be on a city council. Go run for mayor of your town. Go run to be an elected representative. Go be a librarian. Take those positions back. Make a cultural change and a push. Do something about it, Minnesota. I love you guys. That's why I'm telling you this. It's a little bit of that tough love, right? Hey, you know, like I know the tough love, man. When I screwed up in the military, I knew my, those guys that cared about us, our leaders that, and you knew who they were that actually cared about you because they cared enough to grab you by the collar and tell you your shit's messed up. And I appreciated those guys. And I want to do that for you. Go get involved, Minnesota, all right? That's, I'm getting a little passionate about this one. I don't have too much else to put out on it, right? Go get involved, guys, all right? Watch where this money's flowing. Don't take my word for it. Man, this is all over. This is going everywhere right now. And we started reporting on this, weeks ago now, digging into this and watching where the money's flowing out of the state, especially through the Somali community. And now we just have more confirmation on this whole thing. So, all right. God bless and good night, everybody. Remember, stay prepared, not scared.